I want to write the cookbook on how to do this, so we'll have to talk about that at a future meeting.
Let me see. John is quite an adventurer, and he's the train guy. And I have an obsession with trains, real trains. And so does John. He's always brought in interesting historical perspectives, too. And he likes to bring them into innovative virtual worlds. So he's always good at that. Let's see. I'm just kind of looking from the view I can see. And Farah, you want to just say a quick hello and tell people what you're up to?
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you and meet you, some of you. And I've been taking Mallet program classes. This is my third semester, and I've been enjoying a lot, learning a lot about different tools and technologies, STEM tools. And I've been teaching anatomy and physiology in a couple of colleges, and also doing some research in Sophie David Medical School, and I've been enjoying and keeping very busy. I wish I could do more, but I have some little health issue going on since summer, and it's been
and so take it easy, Sarah. But she's doing some work on cardio work, and I was just reading her other work earlier today, looking at blood samples. So, she'll keep us all healthy. Now, Selby, I see you. Can you take the mic, Selby? Selby knows everything.
Oh, Connor. Thank you.
Yes, I can take the mic, and I'm Selby Evans. I'm a retired professor of psychology. I'm primarily, at this point, I'm a blogger, and I blog about virtual worlds, or rather, nowadays, I would say I blog about the metaverse, which includes all the virtual worlds, any of them. So, and I will be putting a couple of items in chat that would will take you to my blog if you want to look at it. And that's it.
Okay, and Selby's blog, what are you up to? Are you at 14 million hits yet? You were close.
Well, it's 13,700,000.
Okay, wow. Selby has concise information. He goes from all levels, from libraries to medical to incredible things. And he's blessed us with coming to a lot of our meetings. He's a big supporter. And I would like you to say, so Selby will put things into the chat. I will try to remember to capture the chat before we leave, because I like to keep it, because Selby has such helpful information in it. And tonight I'm going to try to establish the big picture. I think a lot of these people here might really know that already, but for some it's still, a little bit different. And I want to make sure we've got people covered. I'm trying to think. Scott, I see Scott. Oh, and I see Richard. I see their names showing up. Scott, can you take the mic and say hello?
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
I'm on the wrong side of the building. Hang on, I'm coming around.
Bethany lowered the building. So that's
all right. No, I teleported to the wrong side rather than the entrance. And it's just easier to walk. So how's everyone doing this evening? So I'm not even sure. I haven't even looked at the list who's here.
You can, if you try to sit in one of these seats, you probably can do it from anywhere nearby.
I just felt like going for a walk. It's about the only I get. How are you doing, Selby?
No, I'm doing okay. How about you?
I'm doing well. Hello, everyone. Hello, Val. Hello, Bethany. Hi, John, Al, Sidearm.
Scott, where are you now?
I am in Connecticut, as a matter of fact. I'm once again in a hotel room. It's just an ongoing saga. I'm, projects that have kind of mushroomed.
But that's good too.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. It's keep me off the streets.
Yeah. So oh right, is there anybody I've missed that's here? Sidearm Bethany. Richard Simmons, are you somewhere within microphone shot? And if you are, can you take the mic and say hello? Yeah. Do I sound quiet, or was that Scott?
You sound fine to me, and I had to move my mic
Okay.
closer. I was across the desk.
The volume
All right.
sounds
So I don't know where
loud and
Richard
clear to
is.
me. Maybe, Bethany, you need to move your ears closer to your headset. Just kidding. Over.
Well, for whatever reason, Scott always comes in like on a different channel, and I have to go over to the headset microphone icon and make him louder. Story of his life. No, Scott, I think that's the story of my life. I was just harassing the help desk people for 2 hours, and I found a guy who was empathetic. So the poor guy, he was new. I hope he doesn't quit. So anyway, what I'm going to try to do tonight is, oh yeah, Bethany, that's really a good one. And for all of you, if you do or don't remember, and are you getting an echoing at all? Because I do have my headset on, but I have a speaker thing.
Scott
I'm
had
getting
it.
Oh, you are
an
getting the
echoing.
echo? Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Can you still hear me?
Yes, it's fine now.
Okay, now you can't hear me.
I hear you.
Okay, if I put this up. Oh dear. Because I'm trying to put down my speaker at home so that I don't get the echoing. Thank you. All right. If you can hear me, I don't need to hear myself right now, but if you're trying to reach me, I'll probably have to put something in the chat. Okay. Now, what I am going to do here is be rude and kind of turn towards my slides because I can't see them. But Bethany, can you just take the mic for a minute and tell me whether, and let me see if I can hear you?
Yeah, guys look fine.
Okay. All right.
You
So try
want
to
drive
flag
them?
me or walk in front of me or something. I do have that magic barrier up, so hopefully you won't be able to turn my slides for me. But I have copious amounts of slides. And I know this annoys Selby, but what I've done is compiled a couple of classes of slides and didn't have time to really rescript them. So there's going to be more information. I'm using them more as pictures. And I put the slide presentation itself, the link into the chat, and I'll put it in a couple of times. Yeah, I do. Selby has a much terser way of doing things. So what I've heard from different people over time is a sort of misunderstandings about how these realities have come about. And I'm going to give you my spin, which has been, I'm just a lone ranger. I get out there, I immerse myself in things that I've learned that way. So I don't have a formal education as a graphics designer or anything, but I've learned a fair amount just by doing this now for the past 15 years. So what I'm going to do is a dump of some of these things, and my goal is going to be here to overview the fast emerging areas, and I'm generalizing them. I'm calling them immersion. You'll see them called XR, AR, all of these things. But and also, if you all saw, and I put that, it's coming up soon, that Microsoft just announced Mesh, M-E-S-H, where they're putting kind of their holographic things out. Now, if any of you got to an INP meeting a year and a half ago, we had a doctoral student from San Diego come in. Sorry, Bethany. And he talked about the holographic patients that Microsoft was creating. And so now they're kind of moving forward with it. So I'll just review these things. Now, I'm going to be providing the links to a lot of these past works. So I'm not going to go into everything on each slide, but you will have the links if you want to go further. And so I've also tried to put in here slides that show a little bit about the development platforms. So as you're working, as John just found too, the Unity platform is underneath a lot of these more advanced things. So there's a lot that I'll show you quickly in pictures. Now, towards the end of the slides, I will have some of the latest, and this is going to take probably a good half hour to go through these, to show you the latest that I'm aware of. And if I have it correctly, Bethany's going to come in. It's a big one. Sorry, Bethany. But hopefully it's more of a resource. It's like a Bible or something you can go back to later. But there are a lot of links in it, and I didn't want to lose them. Bethany's going to bring us into Mozilla Hubs. So I'm going to just frame that out so you can think of what it is. Yeah, it's really a resource guide, and I'm thinking most of you probably can handle that. So I do have some of the latest entries into this, and there are some real experts here who've already been into Allspace VR and can bring in more, and hopefully will bring in more during the semester. And do just kind of stop me if I can't, because I'm not sure how well my sound systems are going. As you might know, Google Poly, which was capturing things that people were doing with these new headsets, they deprecated it. They put it out of business. And Google Expeditions, which for me is really kind of a shame because a lot of K-12 teachers were enjoying that. But in the meantime, what was it? Microsoft came out with Mesh, and Facebook, I think, is the one that came out with Meta for Metaverse. So, the big boys are getting into this. So I'm sure we're going to be hearing a lot more about these over time. But in the meantime, they're still putting things forward, taking them down. Now, I'm going to go to the slides. The sequence is a little choppy, but several years back, we started an augmented reality course here at Empire. And in doing that, I was looking for common definitions. And what they're looking, back then, this was, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, the definition of augmented was something that isn't directly on your computer, but that you see through glasses or you see through your cell phone. People had been involved in, what was that, Pokemon? I don't know if I still have the Pokemon pictures here. But what you've seen over time, Pokemon Go, which got a lot of people involved in taking their cell phones out, hovering over particular spots in particular parks, and they could see these augmented things. And I'll show you some of how those techniques were created. But this slide itself is probably a couple of years old, so most of these things have probably already been updated. The different types of headsets. Now, in general, and maybe some of the group here can correct me if I'm wrong, if something could be seen through a headset, I think you pretty much also have the option of looking at it flat screen, 2D. So I don't know. I think the headsets are interesting. They have a big wow factor, but when COVID came along, they became a bit problematic. So we're seeing kind of a lot of changes there. So what I wanted to do was look at some of these broad categories that are emerging. And we have what I'm just calling immersive in general. Could either come in through a computer, a cell phone, or a headset. And these are gross generalizations, but augmented generally today comes in through cell phones or devices. The other day, though, we were getting a realtor and Bethany might know about these things, a realtor for my mother-in-law's house. And she recently passed away, and they were emptying the house out. And finally, the companies are actually developing apps that you can go in and overlay furniture. So they'd rather have an empty house, and the person can actually, go in and do, augment different furniture over the rooms. And we have a group here. FIT is a big institute under the SUNY, the State University Network, out of Manhattan. And we've had a number of students come into this program. And in it, they're working towards making more and more shopping available through augmented reality. So it's happening. And, oh goodness. I have a mistake on the slide. That should be Microsoft Meta. Excuse me, Mesh. Yeah, and I think John was working on some of these too. Let me see. Okay. But this concept of the hype cycle's been around for a while. This one I think I took right from Gartner, who's noted for this hype cycle. You know, things come, they go, they come back again. I worked for IBM in the 1980s, and some of the things they had then put down have come back, you know, so technologies don't necessarily go away. A lot's going to depend on the companies that actually keep them going. But yeah, I have the word right here. I don't know if any of you saw this, but I guess it was the Wall Street Journal thing that my husband was paying attention to. Microsoft just announced their Mesh. And when I went into it, they have a lot of holographic images, and they were using kind of an underwater theme. Now, that's not new. We were looking at, and I don't know if I have it here, holographic images. I think it's one of my later slides, where one of the doctoral students came and talked about the work he did 3 years ago now with holographic medical patients. So, but think back, I don't know if anybody here is of the Ready Player One generation, but for a lot of people, that was really where they kind of had that interface between the real world, the virtual world, and, you know, adventures going on in both of them. But, you know, the question today, you know, and that was, 5 years ago, a Spielberg movie. The thing I want to make a point of is there are stories. You know, people come in and they see a virtual environment and they say, oh, it's a game. It's not anything. It's just a tool. You know, whether you're going to have a story in it, whether you're going to have a web quest, whether you're going to have a meeting, whether you're going to have poster sessions, it's all going to depend on what you do. So don't think, teachers sometimes get mistaken thinking, well, I have a virtual environment, so the kids are going to love it. They might not necessarily. But there's a history to this. MIT has been doing these things for quite some time. They had something called River City. No, I think that was Harvard. The two of them worked together. River City was a simulation of the mills that were found in Massachusetts. And they looked at from the 1800s. They did a beautiful reenactment. They created a story. The kids went in. It was very successful. MIT has a games lab. And this I took a couple of years back. I don't know if the projects are still there, but they were encouraging games for some period of time. So this is not new stuff. This one I got again from Wisconsin. They were using apples. They were using the Macs, and I don't have one, so I wasn't able to really join this. But this was 3 years ago. I don't know where they are now, but these are things that you might want to. And John, the lab is called Scratch. Well, one of the labs, and I think I have a picture there. Where is Scratch? Where you can find out they've been doing a lot of work. MIT's been doing this for over 10 years. But they found something which today they want kids to learn coding. They don't want them to get to college before they learn anything about computers. So right now, even in kindergarten, kids use this Scratch game. It has little, like, avatars that they can move and they can put sounds on. And so kids create games and they go into Scratch and share them. Oh, thank you. Selby, you know, watch for Selby's posts there. I'm going to try to keep them going. So again, I'm just rushing through some of what's been there. This one, again, these slides are a couple of years old. University of, this was Wisconsin, doing very nice virtual and augmented reality. And just a plug for what we've been doing at Empire State College. Some of you know, some of you here, Al's made things. Students have been making virtual environments, and I'll just flash a couple of pictures of them. This was a very nice one with the Japanese motif. This particular student purchased some of these from artists, And so she brought and purchased things. She was teaching language and wanted it to be, she was teaching a special ed class. And she didn't want the class to just have to learn the history of Japanese culture through static information. So she created a beautiful environment. Oh, this is a lovely one where we had a student who was a social worker. And he created a wonderful island. Unfortunately, he's passed away since then. But he was a severely handicapped man. And he loved the fact that he could bring people into this environment and can do professional development training. He had a particular interest in families. And what he has here was a simulation of buildings that were used by the original team in England that had studied these particularly challenged kids. So he had that. He also had many fun things on his island so he could bring families together. I had to put in my little plug for science. The virtual reality environments, particularly ones like Kitely here, Second Life, they're based on, they integrate sound, they integrate text, they're CAD programs, computer-aided design. You can make objects, and here I was just showing how a physics teacher might be able to, and this is somewhere on these islands, this little nexus of islands here, you'll find this. This is just to encourage the fact that you can make objects so that they do or don't have gravity. So most of what I get is borrowed from other people who've been willing to share them, but you can also develop your own work. And we've had Al, I'm not sure where Al is right now, he developed an island to train people how to do videography. So they can be, they're just spaces. Oh, and here was my other plug again for the STEM subjects, how you could create a ramp and watch things fall down the ramp. Again, for math teachers, you can teach a lot. This is just showing how the objects look when they're being created in the 3D space itself. Now, I don't know if I have the pictures here, but you can create objects outside of this environment and import them. Now, there's some restrictions. I think John found out the hard way. If they're too complex, they don't import well. But we have a student, Ruth Ann Harrison. She's an architect, and she's been bringing a lot of things into VR environments. She presented during the residency, and I will be sending out links. I think the residency links are in the materials that I send out with the invitations, but you can see the work she's done. So it's limitless what you can do here. This is, I think Selby's here. Selby has brought us on many trips, and Selby has office hours. Are you still running office hours, Selby? You know, where you can come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the web worlds.
Yeah, and I think I have some pictures from there. So what happened to is right now, again, I'm preaching to the choir, but you're in an environment that's complex and you need a viewer. You know, so you have to bring enough power onto your computer to be able to do enough of the image development. And so more and more with, I think it was HTML5, it became possible to do graphics through a browser, but they're not as fancy. And so this is some of these, what I call low barrier.
Yeah.
And this was something that Selby brought us to. And I took some screen captures. So I think if you go here, yeah, if you open these slides, you'll be able to get more information from that. So again, this is a composite of things that I've been accumulating over the years. So, you know, we're looking at two ends of the spectrum. And I'm going to show you a little bit more about how these get developed. But we've got the virtual reality from advanced ends that are very immersive, very elegant, as you can see here. And then on the other end of this spectrum, we've got lower resolution. We've got things like Mozilla Hubs. We've got All Space VR, and I'll have some pictures of those at the end. You know, we're seeing this development of a lot of different possibilities. But if you want to get in big boys. You have to do, and I think John was finding that out, you have to ultimately go to something like Unity or Unreal Engine. And they have a lot of built-in, Unity anyway, has a very robust training program, but it's not simple. Now, for a while at Empire State College, we had LinkedIn Learning, which also had tutorials. And I think what Unity used to have is, as long as you make less than $150,000 a year from your, quote, game, they don't charge you. But you have, oh, so Valerie's done some building there too. I'll show you, I did a little bit. John's done it. What I did was I went to something called Udemy, where you can get more advanced online courses than LinkedIn Learning, but they're not too expensive. So, oh, and John says there's even a student license fee. So if you really want to play with this, you can get some help, but, you know, realize you're going to make a good investment. And I was trying to help somebody who wanted to learn advanced graphics. And what I had to tell them is you can come into the Mallet program and we'll give you proof of concept level, where you can kind of develop the concept. But if you really want to go elegant, you're going to have to go further. And there are specialized programs that do this. And I looked up one for a friend. It was going to cost it was going to cost a good chunk of money, and it was going to be 600 hours. So, you know, if you really want to get invested in this level, which, you know, but be ready to spend some time. And I think John's going to come back later and help with some of that. But this is a little history of some of the things. This was actually done in open source, which is what Kitely is. Kitely takes the coding that was made available through GitHub, and they've kind of put a good front end on it for people like me who don't know all the coding. But the military had done some work with MOSES, which is an acronym, but I forget what it is. It was something military operations. And this was back during the Iraq kind of Iran things, and they were trying to find ways to train soldiers to go in and clear out a village to save lives. And they were practicing in these environments. So they're still available. You can get them online. And there's Franz, there's, the name eludes me. There are places where you can download these environments for free. But VR also has gotten very advanced. And this was work that one of my other students had done. There is a company in England, and I don't know if the name's here. This is called Shaderware. I think you could click that link. What they did was took virtual reality and used it to train people on setting up X-ray machines. And we have a fair number of people coming into our Mallet program who are in healthcare. And you can say, well, it's better if you go in and be there with a real patient. Yes, it is. But real patients don't always show up with the kind of things that you need to teach the students about. And also, this machinery is very expensive. So what they wanted to do is optimize it. So this company has created a really advanced program where you can go in, send your avatars in, set different intensities of X-rays. So you're going to find that companies are stepping in, particularly in medical fields. And this is burgeoning right now with, you know, the need for more ability to respond to medical emergencies and COVID. So clinical training is a real challenge. And we have some people, I think, if any of you had come last year, we have 2 people doing emergency medical training, three actually. Some from the New York City related SUNYs, some from SUNY Upstate that are trying to do things. And 360 cameras come in very handy to explain what's in an operating room without necessarily bringing the students in. Now, that doesn't mean you don't bring them in at some point, but this is just an example of what 360 cameras could do. just a couple of other pictures. This one, I don't know if I did direct work with here, but you're going to see lots of companies coming in here. And, oh, this was the one. This was Dr. Stephen Haas. He came and spoke. And he's been, yeah. And by the way, too, I used to sell chemical equipment and lab equipment for IBM. IBM went into that business in 1980. By 1985, they pulled out of that business because they realized they couldn't quite compete with some of the competitors in, nuclear. And I was selling things like nuclear magnetic resonance, liquid chromatography, because I have a science and chemistry background. So, these things resonate with me because these are the kind of accounts I had. And as I got older, I wound up being in these hospitals. So I appreciated them from many ends. So we also, just again, these are projects some students have done. Augmented reality. These mannequins are very expensive. Now they're programmed, and they can, really help a new nurse in training, doctor in training. They can help them learn where pressure points are. It's as good as the mannequin. But this particular student's mother was a nurse trainer, and she suggested the need to have an augmented application that could supplement what the what the mannequins could do. So, for instance, the augmented piece over it could show whether there was a possible concussion by looking at the pupils of the eyes. So, this was an application wireframe. It was a plan that this student did. She came and presented it, and I do have to check up with her to see where she's gone. But again, I want to brush through some of these so that you can see. Now, those are some of the things you can do, but let's see, how do you get into this? 360 cameras. And I checked some of these links. They were still up, even the one that said Google Expeditions, what they put down. But this was showing people going into a glacier. Not something you're going to be able to do. Now, in schools, they want to get kids to get on field trips. But even if you're at a school that does field trips and can afford them, you can't get to many. And you probably can't get to a glacier. So there are a lot of these immersive experiences coming up. And, a lot of them are possible because of the fact that our cell phones are smartphones. They have cameras, they have things that do GPS, they have compasses built in. They're smart little phones. So they've allowed things like Google Cardboard to come in, and you would put the cell phone in the cardboard, and it would have two lenses. Now, from what I know, they've stopped running Google Cardboard, but other vendors have come in, and I think that's like the next slide I have. These slides are a couple of years old and probably well antiquated, but there are packages coming out so that if you want to bring this into a classroom, you can, and please keep putting things in the chat because, as you know, I'm trying to run through these so that I give them to you, and I have to exit exactly at 7:30, so I hope you stay and talk after it. But by the way, I went and bought my own camera, and it cost me all of $69, I think, even with the tripod. And, when you get this, you can see my lovely tutorials. Here's one of my grandsons sitting in front of the camera. Bethany says it's fun. So I can't say it was good, but it's certainly worth it. These were just a simple graphics program that had a timeline, and I was playing with them. It was fun. I brought it to a couple of different places. Oops. And, okay, let me see. But just to show you some of the other things that are coming out, losing track here. Now, this was something that I think was in Google Expeditions, where somebody had done a really nice panoramic view of the pyramids. And they had embedded in it through links a lot of different information. And I think if I show you this. I drilled down through a couple of them just to show you how immersive 360 cameras can be. And since I developed this, we've taken in a lot more K-12 teachers. They really weren't our primary audience until 2 years ago. But teachers love this, especially with COVID. There are mapping companies coming out. Well, this one I think is just Google Earth, which has been around for quite some time. And if you haven't used it, I think you'll have fun with it. I have one student developing an application this semester, but you can go in and tag different places. You can put in pictures. So it's a great thing to work with kids, too. This was something a student came up with. I don't know if the name of the software is there, but she found that she could get all these pictures of different resources, whatever, nice places to go. And she kept on saying, when you go there, and I kept on saying, I've never been able to afford to go to these places, and many of the kids can't afford it. But they could go there through traveling, through these 360 pictures. So lots of creative ways to bring this immersion in. And I don't know if any of you know these guys. They are big in Second Life. And I always get Spiff mixed up. He runs, I think some of you guys know him. He's incredible. He works with the BOCES, which is in New York State. That's a group that supplies materials to schools. They can't always afford to do it themselves. He worked in, he did a whole thing on the Holocaust. He created a Holocaust museum. He did something on Anne Frank, and he used them with the social studies classes. And he works with this other teacher who's just very inventive. And she was working with merge cubes. So I have something coming up on merge cubes, which are, okay, I'm just going to go with the sequence here, but I'll have them later. Merge cubes allow you to make quick and dirty augmented reality. And that teacher, if you follow that link back there, those are two wonderful people who are very generous with their time. Yeah, yeah, it does look like an Alchemist Railroad. Again, just another thing about how important it is to use 360 cameras for places you can't get into. Now, I saw this thing called Z Spaces. I saw it demoed in a high school. And these kids have on headsets, but they look just like glasses. They're not really, I think you don't see it in the kid there, but they use a kind of pen and they pull these objects out. Now, science tends to get a lot of these because science is built often on models. And so you can have science and engineering. So you'll see a lot of the initial apps coming out with science. But I don't quite know. This was before COVID. I'm not sure where this group stands right now. But just to look at where we're going with augmented reality today. And I'm just kind of previewing these slides. You can come back later and look at them if they're of interest to you. But these things are not new. They've been evolving now for several decades. And what you're going to see now, though, is how can you get into augmented reality? And if I have these slides in the right order, you're going to see some of the work that I've done and some of the classes I've taught. And where might you use augmented reality? Well, it's coming out right now in a lot of mapping programs, but it's coming out in industry. As I said, with my in-laws' house, you can go into an empty house and project in possible furniture. So there are many ways these can be used, and if you come into this, you're going to find links to some very good articles that can give you more background. But when they were first thinking about augmented reality, they were looking at different types of functions that you could do. And the principle is you have something called a tag, and I think I have a target, I should say, that gets recognized by, in the simplest thing, a cell phone. It's almost like a QR code. The cell phone recognizes the code, sends it back to some computer through a satellite, and the augmented 3D object appears over the target. So I'll show you. Okay, so it's analogous to QR codes, but and you can test some QR codes. But here is an example of and augmented reality. And this is with this merge cube that I talk about. And I think I have a link here. Yeah, Walmart came out with the merge cube a couple of years back. And if you've seen it, it's just a big foam block. And over it are kind of metal inlays that create kind of a curlicue effect like a QR code. And what they do is, if you have the right app, it will go back and pull in whatever it is you've created. So this was something I think I just created. I went into, Al bought one too. I went into Tinkercad, which is the 3D program, made a couple of quick and dirty slides, and overlaid them over my merge cube. And this is a picture from my cell phone of what I can see. So I'm not going to be able to teach you all of how you do it, but it's not that hard. So if you want to play, go, and I don't know if I have more in the merge cube, go back and try merge cube. In the meantime, on the other end, if you want to get more sophisticated, there are a lot of mapping programs coming out. And this was 3 years old when I put this together, but this one is Mapbox. They still send me stuff. You know, these companies are trying to find, they're finding a plethora of ways to do this, anything from travel industry to security issues. So this was I got these, this is from Mapbox as well. They had some interesting tutorials. This was, I think, New York City. So there are many ways these companies are starting to pull these together. I just kept on taking screenshots. So when you look at these, you can see the interface behind it. So you can get a sense of the complexity. And again, if you get into Unity, or some of these programs that make, oh, they probably do have Boston. John, you'd love this, because John likes, travel things. Yeah, find Mapbox, and so take these slides and follow those links. If they're not up to date, at least the company should still be there. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this. This was a couple of summers ago. In the summer, we get a little time for development. Now, Google started with AR Core, and this again was 3 years ago when I put these slides together. I don't know if they've stayed with it since they just put down Google Poly. But again, these companies are growing fast and highly competitive. I don't think they make the cardboard anymore. Problem with the Google Cardboard was you put your cell phone in, it's showing a lot of high-end graphics. They get hot. And I knew this wasn't going to be a very good way to do things, but it was simple. Now you can see this lady on the other end, she's using the haptic devices where it can respond to where you're moving the object. So, again, big range possible here. These were some fun things. I don't know if they're still available, but look at these. There were some YouTubes that show how the concept was you could look at the ketchup label and you could bring up some recipes. And these are how they sell things. Now, to make an AR app, though, and I'm going to be rushing through these, you need something called Unity, which is a big game engine. And they have something called an AR camera. And what you do is, now, I took a course in this a couple of summers ago. They were using software called Vuforia. Now, I don't know if that's still even out there, but that created this link between the device and the object that you would hover. So I will show you what I did. Okay, here is an example of what they did with the label. Now, where's my stuff? Yeah, what I did was I went and got playing cards. I said everybody could get playing cards. And what I did was, I'm very proud here, I took the Udemy course, and I think, well, I just have a link there. If you go in, you can see me with my avatar. And this avatar was a samurai soldier who was a free animated 3D guy. And I thought that would impress my grandchildren who were coming out that summer, and they were impressed. But then again, they're a hard group to please. So I went through and got a lot of other things, but this is, again, Google Poly here. What they had done was put together a program where you could upload things that you had created. And so a lot of people put their stuff onto Google Poly. And all of those wonderful things that I got, I can't get them anymore. Just the other day, I checked out Google Blocks, and that was still there, where they have a program where you can build 3D objects. So again, if you're interested, you might want to play with some of these. This was from Google Poly. I don't know if I can still get it. I literally took the picture, downloaded it, and put it onto a website. It was lovely. But I think the picture doesn't show up anymore. This, just a couple of other examples. This is Tinkercad. This is one that, I think it's AutoCAD. Yeah, Autodesk. Autodesk is the grand program that's used professionally to build buildings, 3D places, and it literally ties the building that you create into things like how much concrete you're going to need, how much materials you're going to need, and what they want you to do is get kids ready so that when they're graduating, they're ready to use these. And so they've made Tinkercad, which is a school level version, out there, quite easy to use, free. So I think if you go into it, you can get a free version so that you can start building these skills. These companies know that kids today are going to be the ones who will be creating these projects in the future. So just a few more pictures. If anybody wants to get into the advanced stuff, and John was trying this too, you need to make 3D objects. And each object has a certain number of facets to it, polygons. If you're in something like we're in now, the objects are not that fine-tuned, but if you really want to get fine-tuned objects, you need to be able to go into these very robust programs which allow you to make a lot of small polygons. That means, though, they take a lot of work for the computer to draw them. So these will not be something you can send a link out to. But just to show you, there are programs that allow you, there's a program called Maya, M-A-J-A, that does beautiful graphics, but it's very expensive. Blender is an open source, which means you can get the code for free, that allows you to play with this. These were just some pictures that I took when I was learning how to work in Unity, and I was trying to do the AR apps just to show you what the interface looks like. So this was one of my samurai guys, and you can see I put him on a platform. I adjust the lighting, so there are a lot of adjustments you can make, but it was a good way to do it. I made a front end, again, pictures of my family playing cards, and I put that in so that you could move back and forth. But this is, again, just to show you something about what that interface looks like. And I've got a few more minutes. So, it's M-A-Y-A, sorry. Richard here, I'm glad he's, because when I leave, I hope that you guys can have a good conversation behind my back. But we did have a student who came in. She was very interested in the 360 cameras. She teaches people how to bring boats out. She works for the new SUNY's Maritime Academy, and they have very expensive simulations. She went and got a really nice 360 camera through a grant, and she's been training people through the camera. So that's what I think you're going to see a couple of her slides here. Just a couple of other things students have done in VR environments. But I'm going to kind of wrap up with some of the new stuff coming out, and I think Bethany's going to show us more about this with her work next month. You know, there are lovely programs, but you need viewers, you need complex things. Hubs, which comes from Mozilla, which made Netscape and everything, make Firefox, was at least initially open source. I'm not sure what they are now, but they're making these very interesting front ends. And so Bethany can show you more, but here's just kind of a comparison. Because you send out a link, somebody has to come in through their internet. They're blocky. You're not going to have that kind of fine resolution. So you can see the difference between hubs and a VR environment. But they're allowing you to send out things and invite people to a session quite quickly. So here was me in the hubs. Spoke. They have something called Spoke, which is where you develop things. and I just took a couple of pictures so you could see the interface. They have a lot of pre-designed spaces that you can use. I was making tutorials, so you see me in here too. So these were just showing you a little bit about that interface. It looks more like what you get if you use Unity or Adobe. Okay, so these are the kind of pictures here. Here was a complex building, so you can do all sorts of things. Some of my students in the Mallet program, they went in and created a very simple application, and here's just showing you some of the avatars. They're blocky, but they get you going fast. And they were making a gaming room. This was just another place I found that was using a hubs type interface. And we have some people here who are a whole lot more expert than I am at this. But there are now places coming out that are designed towards conferences. Verbella is the company that was hosting this thing that I presented at about immersive learning research. And what I looked up, let me see if I find it here. Well, I was just trying to show the interface. It's clunky. They've optimized it for one thing. They've really put it towards presentations. And the big thing is when you land there, they have tech support people who talk you through everything, so you never get lost. You know, right now, and I know Selby's got a lot on using bots, but somebody has to really guide you. These are complex environments. So they've worked that in. But I found out, and I thought I had it here, that it was created at San Diego State, where my grandson's going to school right now. And so Bethany's going to have to tell us more about it. Yeah, Verbella, they got together with their business department. And so I was trying to find how they made it. We were trying to think of whether it was Unity or whatever. You can come in with a headset, or you can without one. I've learned if you see avatars, I don't know if I have an example here. Well, I don't have an example. I don't have time to go backwards. But if you see avatars with disconnected hands, I think that means they're coming in through a headset. But most of these you can come in through 2D and 3D. But Bethany, find out more about this group. It might have been started for real estate, but now there are so many of these virtual platforms coming out. They call them events platform. I found, people are just sorting them and ranking them. Now, I think Bethany's here. I think we have Valerie's here. I can't remember who pulled this together. All Space VR. This one, interestingly, was sponsored by Hewlett-Packard. And yeah, it was organized. Okay, Val did the organization here, so when I leave, she can tell you more. But it's to kind of show you all these different types of avatars. Now, these all have hands. I didn't have a headset. Maybe it's the opposite way around. Dang, you look good. And I don't think I have everybody. Yeah, Sidearm, you're in the picture too. I think I'm not there. I kept on taking some screenshots. So that was us as presenters. This was us looking out to the audience. Oh, hanging hands means no controller. Okay. So we were looking at the audience. Then later, they had this little interactive chat. And when I leave, you will have these slides. This was another conference that I went to. I forget what environment we went in, virtual world. Robin isn't here right now. She pulled this one together. Everybody talked about different things. Right now, we're working with a medical school that's using virtual reality. They're using Second Life to simulate patients. And they were trying to use it to simulate patients coming in from very different backgrounds. If you've got somebody who's come from a different country, what can you do? So lots coming out here. This just a plug for State University of New York, where we are behind California by a long shot, but we're trying to catch up. And so I think back to the beginning, and I finished just in time because I've got to go help my husband finish packing. But I want to thank you all for coming and encourage you to please stay and talk. And I won't have that recorded. I am trying to record this. I think Al did show up, and he might be able to record, give us a better recording. But here's the link to the slides. And again, I'm sorry I had to go so quickly. Hopefully, I just piqued your interest. You can go through the links. Some of them are very new, some of them are a little bit old, but thank you all for coming. Oh, Lucia, coming in from Italy. She gets our thing for the longest distance, and it's always wonderful she shows up. This is a challenge for her coming at this time. So it's a lot of information. It's a bit of a brain dump. I hope it's as accurate as possible, given my disclaimer that I'm not a graphics designer and all that, but I love this stuff. And I've been immersing myself in it for some 15 years. So there's my brain dump. I'm going to leave. I hope you can stay. And thank you for coming. And we have a good agenda ahead. Bethany's got next month, and maybe she can tell you more. But I have to say goodbye, and I really appreciate your time. And sorry for making it a lecture, but hopefully you can follow the links later. Good night, everybody. Bye.